The best of the morning to you. This is Monday with Friday, preparing you for a better week ahead. Last week, I offered definitions of politics and justice to introduce a paper entitled What Racial Justice Looks Like, which I recently shared at an international gathering of religious leaders in Alabama. Today, I'll begin to look at examples of racial injustice and offer cursory pictures of what racial justice might look like. The deeper dives shall be for someone else at another time. The paper was meant to reflect what racial justice might look like through the lenses of a transformational leader. The simplest definition of transformational leadership is offered by Bruce Avolio and George Bass, pioneers in the field. In their book entitled Developing Potential Across a Full Range of Leadership, they say, quote, "Transformational leaders motivate others to do more than they originally intended and often even more than they thought possible," unquote. Transformational leaders look for possibilities outside the box and often ignore the box altogether. Is what some folks mean when they say God can make a way where there is no way. So it's not out of order to suggest then that transformational leaders, whether religious or not, proceed with faith as they seek to grasp for what lies in the not yet, in the future, the possible. Now here's the first example of racial injustice. In 2021, tens of thousands of asylum seekers, mostly black Haitians, converged on the United States southern border. Most left Haiti due to and even before the last devastating earthquake. All left due to social and economic devastation fomented in the bowels of racism when black enslaved humans dared to revolt 218 years ago to reclaim their God-given freedom. Through the centuries up to the present time, every disadvantage Haiti has suffered can be traced to the deliberate impoverishment of black Haiti as white France punished them for their supposed effrontery to claim their freedom. And neither did white America leave Haiti better off, having taken its own turn occupying Haiti for 19 underdeveloped years. The brutality of the Duvalier era is nothing compared to what France and America did to destabilize Haiti from the start. Now, when these thousands of hapless Haitian asylum seekers converged on the American southern border in 2021, the Biden administration quickly and without any apparent processing of these individuals as legitimate asylum seekers, shunted plane loads of them back to Haiti as deportees, reminiscent of the previous administration's callous attitude to persons of other ethnic and racial groupings on the said southern border during their 4 miserable years. As an aside, let us be very clear. Black people comprise 7% of America's undocumented population, but are 20% of all deportees. Racial justice requires France to address dreadful wrongs committed against Haiti, systematic repercussions of which strike that nation daily. Haiti needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. Now, my focus here is not to address how the culture of graft, greed, and criminality can be assuaged there. Doubtlessly, that's a monumental task by itself. My objective is to indicate instead that financial resources and patrimony of which Haiti was robbed from the start of their nationhood need to be restored and returned, and with interest. The nations that became rich on the back of Haiti's impoverishment can afford to do that and should. Once again, my objective is not to supply the minutiae of that restorative justice, but rather to affirm the first fundamental step for making it happen, the first non-negotiable step to make it happen. It is not aid that Haiti needs, neither is it aid that Africa needs. It is restorative justice. All this raises another picture of racial justice elsewhere. For racial justice must also address the problems that create the world's 100 million forcibly displaced peoples, refugees, and asylum seekers, whether they are on the US southern border or in Turkey or Germany or Colombia or Uganda or Pakistan, most of whom are people of color. Racial justice must also expose the hypocrisies that allowed America a generation ago to rescue and welcome white and brown Cuban asylum seekers from sinking boats off the Florida coast, while at the very same time turning away black Haitians in the very same condition. Similarly, racial justice must challenge nations like Poland to change their ways. Poland now welcomes white and supposedly Christian Ukrainian refugees in 2022. Nothing wrong with that. But they stringently refused to welcome colored and supposedly Muslim Syrians since 2012, running from that butcher al-Assad as refugees. Now, this is only my first example, but as you can see already, racial injustice lurks everywhere. Race and racism are a twin human construct, the birth child of injustice. Neither could exist or flourish without structures of injustice. We must defeat them both. I am Michael Friday, and somewhere somebody's week just became worse, while yours hopefully just got better. Therefore, help someone or some agency to move nearer to justice this week. I'll see you again next week. Happy Monday, all the way to a just and fair Friday.